Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, back again with an update on the Fairmont project. When last we saw it, it was up on the lift and I was attempting to weld in some frame connectors, and they came up a little bit short because the Fairmont is a bit longer than the Mustang they were originally designed to fit. That said, we're eventually going to get back to that issue. For now, I've been doing some thinking and I've been doing some purchasing, and I have a new plan for the Fairmont. Come check it out. This is my new 1982 Ford Mustang. And as I stated at the beginning of this entire process, Ford Mustang and the Fairmont share the Fox body platform, which means the parts are, for the most part, interchangeable between this Mustang and this Fairmont. Now, since I started the plan for the Fairmont, I didn't have a lift. So I was thinking along the lines of building the Fairmont up little by little. Instead, what I've found is a donor car here that I'm going to be harvesting parts off of to use on the Fairmont project. So why don't we get a closer look at why I purchased this Mustang. I purchased this lovely beast in a Walmart parking lot in Frankfort, Kentucky for the price of $2,900, and I'm happy to have it. Why am I happy to have it? Not so much because of the body as I mentioned, but because of this right here. As you can see, someone's been playing around with this Mustang. This, I do not believe, is the original engine. In fact, I know very little about it other than what I was told. It is a 302 bored out to 306, which many of you have pointed out on social media is a true quote-unquote 5-liter engine. It has Ford GT40 heads, racing heads from Ford. The heater core has been bypassed. It has a vacuum advance on the distributor, which so far has not been an issue. It is carbureted, which is what I was hoping to find. It has shorty headers on it and an only power steering and an alternator, an underdrive pulley down there, and a really weak cooling fan on the front there. But that being said, this thing moves down the road quite nicely. It may be cobbled together and it may have been beaten on a bit in its life, but it has a lot of the essential parts that I'm looking for, including it has power brakes. Now, I talked about not running power brakes on the Fairmont, and I was fine with that, but since I have one of these units in hand, why not? It is a 5-speed also, so it's a T5 transmission, so we'll be going from an automatic to a manual transmission. I'm sure that makes a lot of you happy. It also makes me happy. I like driving V8s with manual transmissions, but the clutch is a cable operated instead of hydraulic, and so far that hasn't been an issue, and I've been fine with that. But as you can see, this car has been gone over and has been set up to be a race car, and that will become even more evident when we get it up on the lift and you're able to look underneath it. And I believe it started out with this maroon color and somebody rattle canned it with this flat black, which honestly gives it kind of a cool Mad Max look that I enjoy. Now let's take a look at the undercarriage. First, you may note a massive power steering fluid leak out of the power steering rack. Now it does have power steering, and when I got it, it was bone dry and it was very difficult to steer. What you may also notice is someone's been in here doing some cutting. There's not a lot left of the structure of this car. I imagine it was done to save weight. So I'm really not too concerned about, what happens to this body when it's done. Now, I'm not intent on just throwing it away. I mean, it is a good Mustang body, well, sort of. I'm more interested in the parts that I'm looking for, which are this K-member, which holds the engine in the front. Thing is, I didn't really want to go with like a stock K-member. I wanted to go with a tubular K-member and tubular lower control arms. The car did come with some spare parts with some new lower control arms and also some struts and some other brake assemblies. But I believe the brakes that are used on the front are from a Mustang Cobra. Has these special bump steer style tie rod ends. Fuel oil leaks. This mainly, I believe, is coming out of the power steering rack, but you can see here in the front sump that there may be something happening. The power steering pump itself is leaking a bit. We'll come back here. What's leaking more than anything seems to be the transmission. And when I first got this car, there were a couple of things that were leaking also, which first and foremost would be the exhaust. These headers were loose from the exhaust here, so I had to go through and tighten those up. and that quieted things down quite a bit. It was pretty loud when I first got it. Also, the carburetor was very out of adjustment, and I needed to mess with that. But racing oil pan, this is, as I said, a T5 transmission. The reverse lights, no wonder they don't work. I just found the connector for them not connected. So now I know why the reverse lights don't work. It's not perfect, but for the price that I got it for, I'm not too concerned. You also may note, or may have noted, that earlier on there was no battery underneath the hood. That's because it's been relocated to the trunk, and that's something that I had mentioned that I did want to do. Hopefully it will be an easy thing to move over, but once again, the Mustang is about 4 inches shorter than the Fairmont, so we'll see how that plays out. Aluminum drive shaft. Now, I love the aluminum drive shaft, but I'm concerned that I'm not going to be able to use it once again because of the fact that the Fairmont is slightly longer. So I may not be able to use this wonderful drive shaft that's on here. That would be a shame, because the one that's on the Fairmont, well, it's a stock drive shaft, not meant for anything. Don't know what kind of mufflers these are, but I do like the noise that they make a lot. This is, I believe, our electric fuel pump right here, which is nice that it's externally mounted, which means that we can move this over to the Fairmont fairly easily. Coming back to the rear end, this is where things get really interesting. First of all, you can see our exhaust pretty much terminates here, which, you know, it's all right. But the differential and everything is clean. I like to see that. Now this is the weird part. I'm told the gears that are in here are 308s, so the gear ratio being 308, which is kind of closer to a highway gear than it is to a steeper gear, like I wanted to run 373s. The other thing that I was told about this is somebody welded the spider gears. Spider gears are there and they give you that differential action when you go around corners. What they've done in this case, instead of doing a posi, is they just welded all that together, so I believe everything just turns in the same direction all the time with very little resistance. So it's like a poor man's posi traction, but when you do take turns on dry pavement, you do hear it skidding along because these tires aren't able to do the normal differential action as a result of that. This is the thing that I'm really disturbed by. Rear coilovers. Now, yes, they go up and connect to the body, but all they did was run them up through the floor so that rear suspension is using the floor of the vehicle, just the regular sheet metal, as support for the rear. Not so good. The other thing is this rear end is super loose. You go around corners, or just in general, going forwards and backwards, you can hear this thing clunking around really bad. That's because the bushings in these control arms, both upper and lower, have gone bad. And in fact, you can probably see that one up in there that's pretty much destroyed. So she's got a very loose rear end. Yes, insert joke here. Another thing that was done, somebody got really happy with the Sawzall back here. They were doing what might be referred to as a mini tub, and that they've cut, once again, part of the frame out to accommodate a larger tire back here. Not so keen on that either. But once again, I'm not using this body. I will be using the Fairmont. But it has many of the essentials, as I said, that I wanted to use. So I'm really grateful to have most of this stuff. Oh, and totally forgot to mention, it already has the 5-lug conversion on both the front and rear, and the extended studs. When you run at the drag strip, they require that you run extended studs when you go faster than a certain point. I don't remember exactly what that was, but these longer studs mean that it's less likely for your wheel to fall off. Now, to illustrate how bad and how loose this rear end is, watch what happens. See how much movement I get? Especially over on this side. Those are completely gone bushings. So, very loose in the rear end. Want to go for a ride? I know you do. One of the things I love so much about this car is the noise that it makes when it starts up. So I've switched over to camera mic. The other thing is, there's no ignition key for this car. It's just a matter of flipping these switches and pushing this button, which makes it kind of cool. And if there's some way where I can bring that over to the Fairmont, I think that would be kind kind of neat, but give it a listen. One thing that's super important for any engine, that it has good oil pressure. This engine has very good oil pressure. That's what I've got at idle. So that's kind of one of the things that sold me on it. I know this car was beat on a bit, but it still has some pretty solid oil pressure. The needle's not bouncing around, any of that stuff. I'm gonna let it warm up a bit before we take it down the street. Her favorite temperature is actually right around 170-ish. Starts to get up to 180, doesn't like that so much. But between 160 and 170, you're kind of golden in this car. But anything when you get up around 180, starts complaining a little bit. And I have a feeling that's because that cooling fan is just inadequate. A better cooling fan, I think, would solve that. Let's go for a ride. You better hang on. Yeah, that's that rear end. Bouncing around like it's not supposed to. Oh, and the other thing, second gear synchro is gone, so I got to be careful putting it into second gear, or else it'll grind. And we kind of need to keep the windows down for various reasons. We're not getting behind that truck. You ready? Go sideways there at the start, but I liked it. Now you can drive this thing quiet to sneak past the cops if you want, sort of whisper along, and then you can hear what happens when you open up the taps. Unleashes the beast. It is a beast. How fast it goes? I don't know. Right now, it says I'm going 65. No, I bet when I stop, it's still going to be going 65. The speedometer, not accurate. But suspension also, knackered. But I love it. I absolutely love it. That was for you. Hope you were paying attention. Here comes the railroad tracks. It's going to get exciting.
Oh, there goes my spleen.
One more rip around, back to the shop. We'll talk about where we're going with this. Welded gears. Thought that was a cop. I'm glad it wasn't. All right, we'll behave now. So this engine in the Fairmont, wake it up. Yup. Let's go back to the shop, we'll talk about it. Well, that was a lot of fun now, wasn't it? That thing screams like a banshee when you get on it going down the road. Solid too, no misses, no any of that stuff. When I let off the gas, those little pops in the exhaust, they used to be worse, and that usually indicates like maybe a lean condition. That being said, just out of curiosity, what I ended up doing, and since I got them both parked here, is I measured the wheelbase between the two vehicles. And the Fairmont measures out at 105 inches from wheel to wheel, and this one measures out at 102. So there's about a 3-inch difference between the two, which explains why those frame connectors didn't quite work out the way that I'd hoped initially. But that being said, all the stuff in the front and the back should work out fine. It's just the stuff in between, like the exhaust and the drive shafts, that I'm going to have to deal with. I'm going to try to swap the exhaust over from this when the swap happens. Initially, what I thought about doing was bringing the Mustang in, putting it up on the lift, dropping all the engine, transmission, front suspension, rear end, all that stuff out the bottom, moving it out of the way, rolling the chassis for the Mustang away, bringing the Fairmont in, dropping all of its components out, and bolting the Mustang stuff up in. Easy peasy, I'd be done. But then I started thinking, now that I have this vehicle on the road and it's legal, it's insured and registered, what I thought I would do is use this opportunity to sort of shake things down before it goes into the Fairmont. This way, when I bolt everything into the Fairmont, it's all ready to go. Plus, I talked about wanting to do that tubular K-member, that kind of thing. I'm told this car runs 13s. I haven't actually gone and checked that out. Maybe I might do that just to see if, you know, what this car runs and what it does now, so that I have a comparison to go to when I switch things over to the Fairmont. There's a lot of things that need work on this Mustang for sure, but it does run, it does drive down the road, and as I said, I can kind of use it like a petri dish to sort of check out and shake things out, like that overheating issue, possibly swap a fan over to see if that takes care of that. Lots of things that I can do with this until I get to that point. In the meantime, we'll finish up those frame connectors on the Fairmont, probably adjust the doors a little bit too. That's probably suffering from that as well. And see where we go. Well, just have fun with the Mustang in the meantime. Maybe I can even replace those bushings and those control arms, and I won't have to replace those whole things. That would be really ideal, to just be able to put that power to the pavement, aside from that horrendous noise that we get when we do it now. But anyway, the plan is now, going to drive the Mustang for a while, shake it down. Fairmont, we'll finish up the frame connectors, and we'll move on to the next step there. But for now, I got a fun Mustang to drive. That's nothing so bad about that. Anyway, if you have automotive questions, I'd ask that you head over to EricTheCarGuy.com. Welcome video there to tell you about our stuff to help you. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, and now Instagram. Close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty, and I'll see you next time with more Fairmont videos. Love that noise.